And welcome to Impact 2026. Happy New Year to everyone who may be there. This is our continuing conversation where we talk about all types of topics from race, religion, current events, everything that's going on in the world out there. And so as we go through this journey, I like to remind people that this is your opportunity to get in on the conversation. And so you can feel free to go ahead and type your comments and your questions into the comment section. Be a part of the conversation. And so I encourage you to do so. You just don't want to hear me talk. You want to be able to put in if you like something, if you don't like something, put in just a comment, if you have a different opinion, or even if you want to just take the conversation into a whole nother area. This is your opportunity to do so. So whether Facebook, YouTube, go ahead and just type something into the comment section and we will read it and address it. As always, I like to remind people about the offerings that we have. Other than Impact 2026, we also have Thursday Thirst that comes on Thursdays, hence the name, at 7 o'clock. It is a weekly Bible study. It is an opportunity to deep dive into the Bible instead of, sometimes we just kind of breeze through, but we actually go into the Bible, go into the different verses, go into the different chapters, and kind of have a background information and a little bit deeper understanding. So please join us for that at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, just in case you're in another time zone. On Sundays at 10 o'clock, we have worship service. That's 10 o'clock a.m., and that is worship service. You can join us Facebook, YouTube, and also in person at the address that you see listed here on the screen. And then on Tuesdays, today, we have a time of prayer from 7 to 7:45. If you pray at any point in time in between that time frame, you will be praying with the ministry. That is the time that we all pray. And so please join us for any and all of those offerings. And of course, at 8 o'clock on Tuesdays, we have Impact 2026. Happy New Year, everyone. We just start off with that. It's a debate on when you have to stop saying Happy New Year. But I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. There's been a lot going on just in this new year, a lot of current events. And that's kind of where we're going to hit on today, a little bit more of the current event action. One of the things that's happened that you may have seen is that the United States has decided to go into Venezuela and capture and take out the president and bring him here to be on drug charges. A little bit of an amazing thing when people see you see a nation go into another nation and just decide to capture their leader. It's not usually a thing that happens, but hey, that's the world we live in now. We're a little crazy over here in the United States, it appears. Lost our way. What else has happened? What else has gone on? Well, there's been a lot of fraud cases that they say that's happening in Minneapolis, if I could say that right. And Minnesota. Is it Minnesota? I think. But there's a lot of fraud cases that's been going on. And the Somali population, immigrants, has been targeted by the government. That's a thing that's going on right now. It's craziness out there with that particular situation. If we're still kind of looking into the current events, also what had just recently happened is that we lost one of our storied institutions. Is the corporate broadcasting Corporation of Public Broadcasting. If you know, that's the corporation. You've kind of seen that. Most people have seen it at some point in time in their life, especially if you have young kids or you remember being a young kid. That's the corporation, or that's the organization that funds or help fund PBS, Public Broadcasting, and NPR, National Radio. These are the organizations that give out free news and free programming. They also since 1967, has been able to fund just a bunch of different, free programming, because their idea was that quality programs should be able to go to everybody regardless of your income, and you should be able to have news and educational programming across the country regardless of your income or your situation. So as long as you're able to have a TV and be able to cut it on, you should be able to get some free public television. If you have a radio, you get free public radio, national public radio with the NPR. And one of the most famously, they initially funded Sesame Street, which for years educated a lot of kids. Even now, kids still watch Sesame Street, even though it's not under PBS anymore. It's really kind of moved. It's moved to Netflix, I want to say, or HBO. It was with HBO and maybe with Netflix now. I don't know. It's somewhere, but it's moved. And so as a result, that has now been defunded. Congress decided last year that they weren't going to send funding anymore, even though Congress is the one that established it back in the 60s. But that's gone. And so it doesn't mean that PBS is gone and NPR is gone. They now have to find funding from other sources. They can't get it from the government. They can't get it from the broadcast corporation for public radio or public broadcasting. And so those are some things, hot button issues that are going on right now. Those are some of the new topics in just the 6 days that we've had here in 2026. And so, got a comment. That's where we at. If we're all honest about the United States, it was founded by a takeover of land occupied by Native Americans and Mexicans. Now they take over Venezuela because the oil companies want the oil. Absolutely. It's crazy that's what it is. We're right back at it again. We had Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, when we were out there in the Middle East, and we had the war in the Middle East. And we knew that when we went into Iraq, it was all about oil. And and some other little things mixed in, revenge and all that. But it was, we were trying to get that oil. We're back at it again, trying to take over countries so that we can steal their oil. And the only difference this time is that it's being plain. It's just put out there, hey, we're going out here so that we can take over and steal oil. As nations, we thought that things were different, but now they are not. And so that's the reality of where we are. And so there's a lot of different things going on with that. The one, though, that we want to kind of hone in and talk about is immigration. And we talked about immigration a lot. That's been a big topic of 2025 because once the new administration and the new president came in, it was a constant push on immigration, trying to round up people and get them out of the country. Now, we can, another one. Now, there's nothing we can say to Russia or Israel. Absolutely. We can't talk about Russia trying to go and take over Ukraine because we're doing the same thing. And so you kind of lose a little leverage there when you're kind of talking to folk about how bad Russia is or what's going on with that situation. And Israel going into Palestine and just deciding we're just going to take more land. We're going to kick all the Palestinians out and make resorts and other things like that. Yeah, we've gone down this bad path of where now we are what they are. And we can't talk poorly on other nations and other countries because we're doing the same thing. We're doing the exact same thing. But we want to hit back on immigration just real quickly. Because what has gone on is we've had immigration, and there's people who talk about immigration, both ways. I've heard just recently heard people talking about immigration saying, look, in other countries, their immigration laws are pretty tough. Ours aren't as tough. They're pretty, they're not as strict. They're pretty lax. When people's visas run out, and work visas come out, and they stay past their legal ability to be here. We don't chase them down and grab them up and kick them out. In other countries, they kind of do. They don't let you just continue to operate in some other countries. And so, some people are like, yeah, it's reasonable, kind of some of the things that we're doing here with immigration and pulling people out. One of the other things, though, is one of the major differences is that they do have different approaches to when people have been here a very long time or been in their country a very long time. You've been in the country for 20, 30 years. It's a little different that they don't just grab you up and pull you out and just pull you out. But the immigration issue that we're having here, again, there's good conversation. People saying people who shouldn't be here who are illegal. People shouldn't be here who are illegal and able to commit crimes. Um, People worry about resources. I really don't buy into that one. But there's a lot of different conversations when it comes around immigration. But one point or one point is race in immigration. Because a lot of people who defend a lot of the immigration actions get tired of the fact that they're being called racist, or they're saying, "Oh, this is about racism." And they're like, "No, it's about overstaying your welcome, and it's about we're having rules and laws and we need to enforce them." And that sounds reasonable. When you're talking to a reasonable person, it sounds very reasonable. But then the truth comes out, and the truth is, uh, right now, like right now, they've sent 2,000 federal agents into Minneapolis to try to get the Somalian immigrants, because they said the Somalian immigrants are out here causing issues and crimes and things such as that, um, which is not true, which has been debunked. There's no more crime in the Somalian population than there is anywhere else. The Somalian immigrants were welcomed into the area for the most part by the local government. Many people will say it saved the economy in the area. So then, why are these Somalian immigrants really being targeted? Well, we've talked about it before, and we'll talk about it again. It's because they look like me. Like, I mean, they literally look like me. Um, it's a race issue. When they're talking about they're going through and they're breaking down people's cars and picking them up at courthouses and doing things such as that, they are doing those in communities across the nation. But most of the people who are getting roughed up, most of the people who are getting assaulted, most of the people who are getting picked up while they're trying to get their kids from school, those are brown people. Those are Hispanic people. And then, of course, we have to go back to one of the number one things. We sit back and we say, well, there's a bunch of countries that we're going to kick off the list. Y'all are not coming in here. Y'all can't come into the U.S. There's no more immigration coming from y'all right now. We're putting your immigration status on hold. We're putting your visa statuses on hold. We're revoking your visas. Mostly, practically all Black and brown countries, while simultaneously sitting back and saying that South Africans, only white South Africans, you can come into the US and you can have preferred status. If you don't believe that this is a race issue, then you're either missing something or you're just, fooling yourself so that you can feel better about your position. But I think the problem is that this is a significant race issue when it comes to immigration, because brown, Black immigrants are being targeted differently. They're being talked about differently. And, from my standpoint of what I've seen on the news and whatnot, they've been treated differently. Now, there have been plenty of other people from other countries, plenty of people with different skin colors who have also been caught up in the immigration raids and the immigration struggle. But that does not change the fact of what has happened when it comes to people of Black and brown skin color. The Somalians. Why are you calling out Somalians? Out of all of the different people who are here, you're calling out the Somalian population. And then you can make excuses and say, oh, well, it's because, they had a fraud issue up there with daycare. And this is the second time we've talked about Somalians in Minneapolis. The first time was when it was on the campaign trail, when the lies were coming out that they were out here stealing people's pets and cooking people's pets, and they were just doing bad things. They were doing those lies so that they could try to win an election. And now they've come back again, and now they're talking about, well, all these people are committing fraud and bringing crime into the area. Now, is there a fraud issue up there when it comes to getting benefits and things? The government has acknowledged it. There was a fraud issue. And so they said, hey, we had an issue with some people who did fraud. Those people were, prosecuted for the crimes that they've done. There we go. That's what it is. Does that mean that all the Somalian people that are there are a part of that issue? That all Somalian people are doing crime? No. So why would anybody say that? It's because they have black skin, because they're Somali. It's because this has always been and will always be for this administration race issue. And the problem I think that a lot of us are having is that we're deciding to jump in on this issue and being like, oh, no, it's fine. It's about the law. You're ignoring the fact that that's not what they're doing. They're doing race. Oh, we have a comment. And it's not about what others do. It's about what you do. Yeah. That's good. Because it's not. But in reality, white people have allowed racist whites to have their way. And the reality is it benefits you. Yeah. And so here's one of the reasons that I brought this up. It's because we've come to a point where a lot of people have sat back and say, well, what can we do? The administration is doing whatever they're doing. So they're going in here and they are literally murdering people all across the world. When we talk about going into Venezuela and getting the president, it wasn't like they just walked over there and intimidated some folk and grabbed the president. What they did was they dropped bombs. They said 150 planes and dropped bombs so that they can go into this compound. And they went through and murdered people on the security staff in order to get to the Venezuelan president and his wife and one other high official that they brought in. And so they haven't even announced, no one has announced or really talked about the death toll of that. And so you got people who are just working their jobs, security to the president. That's, just like we have. And these people are being shot and killed. These people are being blown up from bombs because they're just doing their job. They have nothing to do with anything other than the fact that this country, the United States, has decided that we're going to come over here and we're going to tear your stuff up. And so we're murdering people. And that's it's not the whole country. It's the administration has decided that we're going to just do what we want to do. We don't have to get approval from Congress. We don't have to get no declaration of war. We're just going to go ahead and do whatever we want to do. And then when it comes to immigration, when it comes to people here, we're just going to do whatever we want to do. We're going to rough up whoever we want to rough up, and we want to do what we want to do. And so it comes back to a race issue because people with brown skin are being treated one way. People with black skin are being treated in a similar manner. But what are we doing with these other nations and these other countries and these other people? Why don't we talk about them the same way? We roll out the red carpet if you are a white South African. But every other nation where you may have black or brown skin, we treat you like trash and we call you derogatory terms. So why are we bringing this up and why are we talking about it in 2026? Because there was an article, articles that have come out. There have been comments and posts that have come out where people are saying, well, what can we do? They kind of frame it in Democrat and Republican things like, oh man, the Democrats ain't got no power. What can they do? We got to stand up and do something, blah, 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 blah. That's great. But I'm not framing it like that. It now comes in frame to, as people of God, what do we do? What can we do? When we know, and we can plainly put out here that our government is now oppressive. Now our government is out here doing things that that no one signed up for, whether you voted for this administration or not. You didn't sign up for the stuff that they're doing because they're not asking. They're not getting buy-in. They're just doing whatever they want. And they're saying, well, tough. Can't nobody stop us. We're just going to do whatever we want to do. And so then it comes back to what we do. We have to acknowledge the wrongs. For whatever you think about the immigration issue, we acknowledge the wrongs. It's racist. Got to acknowledge that. But then what can we do? And then we acknowledge, all right, they're going into Venezuela and taking out the president because they want the oil. One, and these are Hispanic people, so you don't really care about them at all. And then two, you want what they got, so let's just take it. It's the same oil that they have in Canada. So they call it heavy crude. So Canada has heavy crude. Venezuela has heavy crude. The other countries have light, sweet crude. But we're going to go into Venezuela and take theirs. I don't know what's going on here with that. But the question is, what can we do? The question comes back to how do we push back? And I think that it's come to the point, especially for people people of faith, is that now and we've talked about it before, but now we have to start to show what power we have, if we have any left. We have to be able to push back on the administration and show the administration that we are in charge and not you. You were put there to do a job. You're not doing it, or you're doing it in a way that is against the norms or against what we want. So then how do we show and how do we push back? I think we've, as people, we've sat back and we've become very lazy and very complacent and also very assimilated. Because the way that you're supposed to do things is we're supposed to sit back and let the politicians do stuff. We're supposed to go through the legal process. We're supposed to make sure that we allow stuff to happen, bad things to happen, and then we complain about it later on. And then we beg a judge to try to fix it. That's the way we're supposed to do stuff. Because we've assimilated into this society, and we got to lean on our politicians. We need to write a letter and let those politicians know that we're not going to stand up for this. We need to go to a town hall and fuss. That's silly. Like, that's absolutely silly when you really think about it. It's ridiculous. What we have to do is have some action. And we got to figure out what that action is. We have to show force. Politicians can't get anything done. If you haven't learned this by now, I think, and I'm just keeping it plain, if you haven't learned this by now, our Constitution, our laws, our framing of this nation that we've come and that we've had, it wasn't a great job. It wasn't a bad job. They put it together, but it wasn't a great job. Most of the stuff we have has no teeth in it. They talk about justice delayed is justice denied. We don't have a justice system that moves quickly unless you're poor and they want to prosecute you quickly. Outside of that, this thing doesn't work. Like you look at it and you read through, well, all right, so what happens when somebody does something bad? Well, we could, what happens when the president does something bad? Well, after they do something bad and they continue to do something bad, then we could go to the court and we can ask them to pause it. And then the court can say whether they should pause it or not. But what if they refuse to pause it? Well, then you go to the next court and they'll say, you better stop. But what if they don't stop? Well, then you can go back to Congress and then they can vote to impeach them. But impeachment is only just a ceremonial thing, because then you got to go to the Senate and then they got to vote to remove them. And then, man, it's silly. None of that do anything. And what has been shown is that bad people, people who want to do things and kill and harm and whatever, they just do what they want to do. And in this country, we can ask them to stop. And so the problem that we have here now is that we've been trained up in that way. And now we're stuck in a situation where we're asking politicians to ask the courts to ask the administration to stop. Whereas instead, we can flex our power. If there's anything that we've learned from 2025 with Target, is that when we want to do something and we want to show people that we have power, it works and it's very effective. It's very effective. And I think that's where we have to be. The only conversation that we need to be having is, what are we going to physically do? What are we going to physically stop doing? What are we shutting down? What are we disrupting? What are we ending? Because that's the only thing that truly works when you have somebody who doesn't follow by any of these norms and these rules. And that's where we are. I think we're at a point where we got to stop begging politicians to solve all of our problems, where we got to stop asking judges to come in and solve all of our problems, where we got to stop believing that this broken system somehow is magically going to work again. What has to happen is that the people have to show that we're in charge. and that we have power. And I'm not trying to talk in a revolutionary way, like, yeah, let's burn it all down. But no, just like what we did with Target. Look, you think you're gonna get our money, or you think we're gonna continue to do things the way that we're gonna do them? No, we're not. We're gonna shut it down until you get your act together. And that's what we have to do, especially as people of faith and people of God in churches. We have a lot of power that we've forgotten. I think that we had, and we got to remember that we're not just here to talk about it. A lot of us has gotten a lot of government money, and I guess we got our hands in their pockets, and so we can't really do what we're supposed to do. But we gotta start shutting some stuff down. We got to start reminding people of the power that we have. We got to be able to, again, as we do, learn how to sacrifice again. That we don't need everything. That we don't have to go everywhere. Comment. And the first thing they talk about is oil. The scripture teaches us to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So, do you want others to take over the U.S.? Yeah. Do we want other people coming up in here? Because probably a bunch of people who do. Honestly, let's keep it real. There's probably a bunch of people who would love if another country came up in here and took our president and put him up on charges. It's a bunch of people probably in the White House. They'll leave the door wide open for them. I see the bad people coming. Forget to lock the door. So in reality, they probably would want that. But you got to be real. Do you do unto others as you want them to do unto you? Do we want? We're treating other countries in poor manners where we're going to take your stuff. Where we're trying to be conquerors. And going way back into the time machine to a moment of where we're taking over stuff and we're trying to make an empire and do things such as this. And all that's steeped in is greed with the oil and racism. So I like that comment. That it's right there. Got to do unto others as you want them to do unto you. But I think. And we've come to our time, is what we seriously have to consider is what action we're taking this year. What action we're taking going forward. We have to show people, and we have to demonstrate the fact that the church has power, that people of God have power, that people with morals have power. And I think, that solves another issue of, the size of our churches and our ministries, as people have talked about. There's been a little change in the amount of people who have faith and the sizes of church as well. One of the ways I think to bring it back is to show them that we have power. A lot of people are like, well, why go to church? Y'all not changing the landscape of of what's going on out here. Well, I think we have to start doing that. And so. Yeah, that's where we're at, and that's it's a weird start to the year, but yeah, I think we have to really sit back and look at what we can do, and not what we can say. We've said enough. We said it all in 2025. Let's do it all in 2026. All right. Well, that's it. I want to remind people about our other offerings. Thursday Thirst, please be there. Start the year off right. Come on now. A lot of people like to have these resolutions and everything like that. Well, let's be resolute in going to Bible study, to diving deep into the Bible. So Thursday Thirst, 7:00, right here, Facebook, YouTube, 7 Eastern Standard Time. 10:00 on Sundays, 10 a.m., time of worship. Facebook, YouTube, and in person, as you see on the screen, if you are in the Richmond, Virginia area. And then, of course, on Tuesdays, we have our time of prayer from 7 to 7:45, and then at 8:00, Impact 2026. Thank you for joining us. Let's start this year off right. It has to be a year of action. I know this is a program where we talk, but after we talk here, we got to get to some action. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for the comments, and join us again.
Sometimes you'll wonder can climb.